there was no Damascus moment for me. I didn't suddenly feel, a tap on my shoulder which said, right, okay, this is it. I think it was a series of different things, and it was certainly a number of different things that people said to me as well. In about 2014, I attended a vocations weekend, and I went along really, I think, with a bit of trepidation, but also some great expectations that I was going to have this huge revelation, and by the end of that weekend, I'd know definitely that this was a call to me, a call to priesthood. And in actual fact, it was quite the opposite. By the end of that weekend, I felt pretty sure that God wasn't calling me to priesthood. He might be calling me to something, but it wasn't priesthood, and maybe it was more about focusing on the work I could do as a lay person in the church. This sense of being drawn by God to do something different got stronger. And I mentioned other people I think are really important. This was a time particularly when people started to say, have you thought about this? Or, do you know, I could really imagine you being a priest, even, was something that someone said. And again, I tried to shake all this stuff off because I kind of thought, to be honest with you, why would I want this? I'm very happy and I'm very settled. But I just couldn't shake it off. And as I've described this kind of general tap on the shoulder, it was now becoming quite a firm grip. There were a series of things that followed, and the first one was I went off to see the vocations advisor in Manchester, who was absolutely excellent and just sat and talked to me. I was very nervous when I went there because I thought, I don't know what to expect. I don't know, whether he's going to laugh me away. But actually, quite the opposite. He was like very, very encouraging, and we talked about what might help me in terms of discerning my vocation and my relationship with God, and discerning what God really wanted from me. Because one of the things I must say is that I find this is a great responsibility. And I think being called to the priesthood is hugely responsible. And then got to the stage where the real work started, and that was I had to complete a number of different documents to be submitted, to be considered to go forward to a selection panel. So once I'd got through all of that, a date was given to me to go off for selection. And I've got to say, I've got a pretty responsible job. I have gone through a number of different interviews in my working life, and I suppose I started off thinking, well, what's the difference with this one? And then I realised that God is the difference with this, and it was a much bigger undertaking. But I also have to say that when I went off for the advisory panel, which runs over 3 days really, it was an absolute joy. It was hard work. It was challenging on a number of different levels, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. But God was definitely at work during those 3 days, and the people that I met, both other candidates and the advisors that were there for the selection panel, were all just wonderful, and I believe, were placed there by God to help me, and I was part of helping them as well. And then after receiving the news, then the kind of elation of that news, I sat down and thought, oh my goodness, what next? Because I'd chosen, apart from anything else, to study part-time for priesthood. And I now had to think about how it was all going to fit in together. But I do believe that God, again, works in that way as well, because people are very kind when you're going through this sort of process, and no one wants you to fail. It's always about helping you to achieve what God wants you to achieve. So the amount of support I've received has been phenomenal, both from people within the Diocese of Manchester, and also from people who are in All Saints, the training organisation that I'm training with, have all helped me to think about how best I can be formed for priesthood, because it's not just like going off and doing a training course in anything else. It's much broader than that, and much wider, because it's about, again, that ongoing discernment of what God wants for me. Just because I've been accepted for training and I'm now near the end of my first year, one of 3, it doesn't mean that the process of discernment ends there, and I think it will go on forever for me, because once I'm wearing a dog collar, it doesn't mean that I'm the completed version of the priest I want to be. So I think this call, this sense of call, is, I imagine, so different for everybody. For me, it's been my own unique journey. It's been a journey that I've tried to shake God away. It's been a journey where I've tried to run in the other direction at times, until I really, really felt that I could no longer do that, and the only right and proper thing for me to do was to go with it. And the joy and the eagerness that comes through accepting that is immense. So it certainly has been for me. And I think the other thing about doing God's work is that we support each other, and the number of people, both fellow trainee priests, ordinands, and people who are training for other parts of ministry, and people who are just part of the church community, people who are part of my family, people who have nothing to do with my faith but are friends, have been a huge support, and I support them too. And I think that's a really significant thing about this.